The actual incident that happened, we were laying in his bed in the master room. His wife was in the room, and he put his hands down my pants and he touched me inappropriately.
This happens to these kids and they don't know that it's bad until they get older, and they feel guilty. They feel guilty that maybe whatever happened to them might have felt good. And so they carry that guilt with them, as well as knowing what this person did to them was horrific and it stole their innocence from them.
The message I would send if I were to, give a message about this is, if a child tells you something has happened to them, believe them. I am Heather Jordan, and I am a community outreach and development specialist along with a victim advocate. Victim advocate is a person that is with a victim of a crime. Most of the time, a victim advocate is the first person that the victim comes in contact with when they start the criminal justice process. I have worked on a lot of cases involving child sexual abuse, and it oftentimes, I think the perception is that it is a stranger, that those cases, those types of crimes are committed by strangers. More often than not, they are committed by someone that the child actually knows. These aren't the types of crimes that when you're sitting across the table or in a room with a child talking about what has happened to them, it's not something you just can easily forget or shake off. It sits with you, it stays with you. It's very emotional. I've had child sexual abuse victims as young as 3 years old that we've spoken with and had testify. Sometimes they don't even understand what was happening to them is different or wrong. The most common, and I had a prosecutor one time say this in court actually, it was, a young girl had been molested at a very young age for a lengthy, 5 years or so. And when, it's not natural for those experiences to come at a young age, those experiences should be happening as you age, as you're maturing as an adult, and as you choose. And when, this prosecutor said, when she goes for her first kiss, what will she be thinking of? When she's with the man she chooses to marry, is she thinking of that incident? It stays with you forever.
It's something that will stay with them forever. And I always tell my jury that it's not something that, their innocence is not something they can get back. My name is Joy Thorpe. I am the first assistant district attorney for Prosecutorial District 12, which is Rogers, Mays, and Craig County. I've had cases where with child pornography, individuals who distribute child pornography, who are manufacturing child pornography. I've had cases where a child is being molested and they're being forced to watch pornography. I have lots of stories about these cases. There was a case in Lincoln County that I tried a few years ago that probably struck me the hardest out of all of them. It was a girl and a boy, and then two step siblings who had been horrifically molested. It was really, really sad. When I watched the forensic interview, I don't normally get emotional, but I got emotional in that case in particular because at the end of the forensic interview, the little boy said that his mother's boyfriend told them, if you don't do this, if you don't allow us to rape you, then you won't get Christmas presents. And then he said at the end of the forensic interview, I didn't get Christmas presents anyway. And he was in a mental institution for a long time and had to get all kinds of therapy because these traumatic, horrific incidents that happen to kids that last with them forever.
As a kid, I had an interesting life growing up. So I think there was like a lot of different phases to it. So when I was little, I think I had like a pretty normal life. I had like a mom and a dad. My dad wasn't my real dad, but I didn't know that until they were getting a divorce. And then I was put in a guardianship, and I lived with my grandparents, and then my grandpa passed away. I actually found him, and then after that is when we met Chanel. Chanel was Roy's daughter, and that is kind of how I met the Shoops. The actual incident that happened, we were laying in his bed in the master room. His wife was in the room, and he put his hands down my pants, and he touched me inappropriately. It was when I was in 7th grade. I really thought that was a secret I was going to take to the grave because I was so little, and he was a preacher. And so like I really was like never ever going to tell, because who would believe one girl against a preacher? And so I was actually living in Arizona with my child's father, and I remember like waking up from like a midday nap, and like I had like multiple notifications on my phone, and it was like Roy Shoop, molestation. Like they'd send me like article after article, and I was like, I know. Like I remember just like replying like, I know. It said like 2 girls that came forward, and they were like 12, I think. And I remember just like thinking there was like no way I was gonna let them go through that alone because of everything that they were gonna deal with against the church. And I thought that coming forward in a number would be better, and I knew like what they were saying was true because that happened to me. And so I called the like investigator number on there, and I called that number, and I was crying, and I like reported it like that one time, and I told them everything that had happened. I definitely wish I would have made some sort of report back then. I still don't know if I would have wanted to come forward because it's really scary. Like you saw how they treated the 2 girls that came forward by themselves, and so I think it would, like waiting till it played out, I think that was, I'm happy with how it played out now. But then you sit on stand and they're like, well, you waited now, like surely it didn't happen then. Because I think that no matter what other people think, that you do what you think is best and when you think that it is best, because no matter what they think, that you know the truth.
I've been doing this for 17 years, and I've worked with all types of victims. But I will say with victims that are children, the strength and the courage that I've noticed is just these horrible things happen, and then we have to tell them that okay, we're going to have to go to court, and you're going to have to talk about this in front of a bunch of strangers and the person that did this to you. And to see a little 5-year-old or a 6-year-old who's been horribly abused go into a courtroom and sit and just talk about it, lift their chest up and just kind of get through it. I mean, I think children are oftentimes more stronger than most adults I know.
Resilience is probably the biggest strength. I was so proud in a case I recently tried of some girls that were molested by a pastor, how strong they were when they testified. One of the little girls is, we believe, maybe slightly autistic, and I was concerned about her testimony, and I put her on the stand, and it may have been one of the most powerful testimonies ever. I mean, I think just being able to be so strong as to stand, point at your accuser and say, they did this to me in front of a group of people who don't know who they are, a judge who they don't know who it is. You're a child. You don't want to talk about these things, but they are so strong. It's inspiring to me. It makes me want to fight harder on their behalf.
I think believing the victims is very important. I think it's a very tough situation because proving it, like there's no like hard evidence proof, but I think that it's very important to believe children.